And Lepe and I, me, because Galactic was the game that brought me back to the modern games. I was unaware of anything. And you were responsible for that.
If we put in hours the time that we spent playing your games, we would be playing for 1 or 2 months without sleep.
I don't recommend that.
But you are a very very important person in our spare time.
Indeed.
Awesome. Well, thank you. It's an honor.
Corey, do you remember your early gaming experience?
Yes. So, I mean, when we were kids growing up, we used to play board games at home with the family. I have 2 brothers, and my parents, we would all kind of play board games together. They were generally kind of the more mass markety type board games, but there were a couple that were a little deeper than that. For example, my father had a copy of the first edition of Acquire, which is a famous game by Sid Saxon. That was kind of one of the first games that opened my eyes. I was like, wow, there's a lot of strategy to this, and this is a lot more than I'm used to. And it was interesting. And then I remember me and my brothers really, especially my younger brother, we really got into Hero Quest. We got a copy of that once for Christmas or something, and we just it consumed us. We just played it nonstop. It was awesome.
When you did realize that you were more than just a gamer, that designing games was your vocation?
I mean, as far back as I can remember, I always designed games for fun. Like even when we were kids, we would make up our own games. I remember just using graph paper and drawing pictures of the Starship Enterprise and making up our own game about starship combat and all sorts of crazy stuff. So it's always been a hobby. And as I got older, I just kept doing it. I was playing games that I made with my friends. I never really thought I would be able to make money doing it, but I was lucky enough to get a job at Fantasy Flight Games. And that's kind of when I started doing it professionally.
Nice. And Corey, when did you get into the Twilight Imperium 3rd edition and Fantasy Flight Games?
Mm-hmm. So I remember I was not working at Fantasy Flight at the time when Twilight Imperium came out. I was following it as a fan. And I was like, wow, this game looks amazing. I had never heard of the 2nd edition. I just saw their website and various places they were talking about their edition. So that was the first game I ever pre-ordered, was Twilight Imperium 3rd edition. And I got it, and I played it to death with my friends. I remember we played it on my birthday. We played it at my bachelor party before I got married. It was awesome. And I was, of course, being a game designer by hobby, I was designing my own cards and stuff to play with the game. Me and a friend of mine, we made our own kind of mini expansion for the game. And I included that with my resume to Fantasy Flight Games. So when I applied, I sent in kind of, here's this fan expansion I made, which little did I know that Christian Peterson would be reading this and look at what I designed, and he might have said, what, this is awful, and just thrown it away. But I guess it was good enough to impress him, because it was part of what got me the job.
Wow, this was actually my 2nd game I purchased after Battlestar Galactica.
Oh, nice.
And talking about the TI, what improvements did you bring to it?
Sure. So I was completely thrilled and starstruck when I was given the opportunity to make the first expansion, Shattered Empire. I had kind of some ideas from before I worked at FFG, but I'd also been talking to Christian a lot about doing an expansion and the sorts of things that we wish that we could add to the game, change the game. There was also a lot of things from previous expansions that had been cut that we were kind of looking at like, hey, would this make sense in it? And so it was just kind of a dream come true to be able to work on expansion. So the Shattered Empire expansion was basically one of the first big expansions I got to work on at FFG. And I mean, it's hard to pick out what specific things I like added versus Chris versus the other people that were working on it. But I mean, a lot of little things, like there was the wormhole nexus. I know there was the mercenaries in the second expansion. There were just a lot of things that would take me a long time to recall.
There is a lot of mechanics in TI, but
yes.
I guess you tend to add more social interaction mechanics, and every game designer has a characteristic. I could say that we could say that you have at least two. You are the best game designer who can take intellectual property and blend it to the game mechanics. No one does it like you do. And you always put some kind of social interactive that makes the game unique and even better. Do you think that is fair to say that you are the social interactive guy?
I don't like comparing myself to other people, but I can say that social interaction is important to me. Like, it is one of the reasons why we play board games. We're sitting around the table with our friends, and we want to be having fun. And I think thinking of fun ways for us to interact with each other. In fact, the thing I was just working on 5 minutes ago before this interview, I was working on a very social interactive game and thinking of how players can interact in different ways. And so you're crafting an experience when you're designing a game. You're not just making mechanics. You're making your own little event that people are going to bring to their house and have. And it's kind of up to you what sort of emotions you want them to feel. Do you want them to feel betrayed by their friends? Do you want them to feel like a sense of we're all in this together and high-fiving as your friend accomplishes something? Or do you want there to be more bluffing elements? It depends upon the game, and you want to find, for whatever story you're trying to tell, you want to find kind of the right emotion that you want people to feel.
You have succeeded in all of them.